Jiwon stood at the observation window of the Eternal Harmony, watching the blue and green planet below. Her silver skin caught the light from the distant star, creating patterns that shifted with her breathing. She had visited 43 worlds in her career as a xenologist, but something about this one made her feel uneasy. "They call themselves humans," Captain Hyejin said, walking up beside her. The captain's voice was calm, as always. The Valtherian people had learned long ago that calm voices and careful decisions kept them alive. "Our scouts report they have colonies on 7 worlds in this sector." 7 worlds in only 200 years? Jiwon turned to look at her captain. That's remarkably fast. Too fast, perhaps? Hyejin touched the window gently. "The Council wants to know if they are ready to join the Galactic Coalition." Jiwon nodded. The Coalition had 47 member species, all living in peace. They had achieved this peace through careful rules and wise caution. Every species understood that fear kept you alive. Fear made you check your equipment twice. Fear made you plan for disasters. Fear was good. But these humans seemed different. The communication panel beeped. A human face appeared on the screen, smiling widely. His dark hair was cut short, and his eyes crinkled at the corners. "Hello? I'm Doyen, Colony Administrator. Welcome to New Haven. We're excited to meet you." Jiwon felt her chest tighten. Excited? They were meeting aliens for the first time, and he was excited? Where was the careful protocol? Where was the measured response? "We accept your welcome," Hyejin said formally. "We request permission to visit your colony." "Of course. Come right down. I'll meet you at the landing pad." Doyen's smile never faded. "Fair warning, though. We're having a solar flare today. Might get a bit bumpy during landing." The screen went dark. Jiwon and Hyejin looked at each other. "Did he say solar flare?" Jiwon asked. "Yes." Hyejin's scales had turned slightly pale. "Perhaps we should wait." But Jiwon shook her head. This was her job. She needed to understand these humans, and that meant meeting them. "We have good shields. We'll be safe." The shuttle ride down was indeed bumpy. Radiation from the solar flare created waves of energy that shook the small craft. Jiwon's co-pilot, Nari, kept checking the instruments with nervous movements. "Shield holding at 85%, Nari said, her voice tight. "Should we turn back?" the pilot asked. Jiwon was about to say yes when she saw something through the window. Human ships were flying through the storm, not fleeing to safety but working. They were adjusting satellites and repairing equipment in the middle of the dangerous radiation. "Look at that," she whispered. The shuttle landed safely on a platform outside a domed city. When the door opened, Doyun was waiting, still smiling. He wore simple clothes and carried no weapons. Behind him stood a group of other humans, all looking curious and friendly. "Welcome," Doyun extended his hand, a human greeting Jiwon had studied. She took it carefully. His skin was warm, much warmer than hers. "How was the flight?" "The solar flare made it dangerous," Jiwon said. Doyun laughed. Actually laughed. "Yeah, Tuesdays, right? Come on, let me show you around." As they walked through the colony, Jiwon took notes on her data pad. The human city was built efficiently but not heavily defended. She saw children playing in open parks. She saw people working on tall buildings without much safety equipment. She saw risks everywhere, but no one seemed concerned. "Your colony is very open," she observed. "We like fresh air and sunshine," Doyen replied. "Well, dome-filtered sunshine, but you get the idea." "But what if something breaks? What if the dome fails?" "Then we fix it." Doyen shrugged. "We have emergency protocols, backup systems, all that, but we can't live our whole lives being scared of what might go wrong." That statement stopped Jiwon in her tracks. Can't live being scared? But fear was how you survived. Fear was how you avoided danger. How could any species evolve without learning proper fear? They entered a large building where humans worked at various stations. Doyen introduced her to several people. Each one was friendly, open, and seemingly unworried about meeting an alien species for the first time. "This is our operations center," Doyen explained. "We monitor everything from here. Life support, power, defenses, all of it." "Defenses?" Jiwon perked up. "What do you defend against?" "Oh, you know, asteroids, radiation storms, the occasional equipment failure." Doyun pointed at a screen showing the solar flare. "Like this beauty today. It's a big one." An alarm suddenly blared through the building. Red lights flashed. Jiwon's heart raced and she felt her body preparing to run. This was danger. This was why you felt fear. But the humans around her didn't panic. They moved quickly but calmly to their stations. Their voices remained steady. "What's happening?" Jiwon demanded, her voice higher than she wanted. "Solar flare just got bigger," Doyen said, walking to a console. His fingers moved quickly over the controls. "We need to boost the dome shields. Yunji, get me power from sectors 3 and 7. "On it," a young woman responded. Jiwon watched in amazement as the humans worked. They were clearly concerned, clearly aware of the danger, but they weren't frozen by fear. They just acted. "Should we evacuate?" Nari asked, her voice trembling through Jiwon's communicator. "No," Jiwon said slowly. "Watch what they do." It took 15 minutes. 15 minutes of dangerous radiation levels, of systems straining, of real risk. But the humans managed it. When the crisis passed, when the dome shields held and the flare subsided, the humans cheered. They hugged each other. Some were laughing. Doyun turned to Jiwon with that same easy smile. "Sorry about that. Bad timing for your visit." "You weren't afraid," Jiwon said. It wasn't a question. "Oh, I was afraid." Doyun's smile faded slightly. "That was a close one, but fear doesn't help much when there's work to do." Jiwon didn't understand. Fear always helped. Fear kept you alive. But these humans treated it like an inconvenience, something to work around rather than obey. That evening, back on the Eternal Harmony, Jiwon sat with Captain Hyejin in her office. "Your assessment?" Hyejin asked. "They're strange," Jiwon said carefully. "They feel fear, I'm certain of that. But they don't let it control them. They take risks that any coalition species would avoid." "Is that dangerous?" Jiwon thought about the humans working in the solar storm, about the children playing without heavy protection, about Doyen's smile in the face of crisis. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I need to find out. I need to understand why they aren't afraid, or if they are, why they don't act like it." Hyejin nodded slowly. "Then you will continue your assessment. Take your time. The Council needs to know if these humans belong in our coalition or if they're too dangerous to join us." Jiwon looked out the window at the human colony below. Lights were coming on as their evening began. It looked peaceful and beautiful. But she had learned that with humans, appearances might not tell the whole story. She had 47 species worth of data in her memory. Every one of them had achieved space travel through careful caution and managed risk. They had survived by learning to fear the right things and avoid them. But humans seemed to have survived by facing their fears instead. The question was, could that possibly work? Or were humans just lucky, waiting for their luck to run out? Jiwon intended to find the answer. Jiwon spent the next 3 days conducting interviews. She had a list of questions approved by the Galactic Coalition, designed to measure a species' readiness for membership. Questions about conflict resolution, resource management, and risk assessment. But the human answers kept surprising her. "Do you fear death?" she asked a human engineer named Minho. He was young, maybe 30 cycles old, with grease stains on his hands and a relaxed posture. Sure, Minho said, shrugging. Everyone does. Then why do you work with reactor cores? That is one of the most dangerous jobs. Minho grinned. Someone has to do it, and I'm good at it. That wasn't an answer. That was avoiding the question. Jiwon pressed further. But don't you want a safer job? Your species must have positions that don't risk radiation exposure or explosion. Yeah, but those jobs sound boring. Minho leaned back in his chair. Look, I could work in an office. I could push data around on screens all day. But I like being down in the engine room. I like knowing that when I fix something, it matters. People need power. People need heat and light. I provide that at the risk of your life, at the chance to do something meaningful. Minho's expression became more serious. My grandfather used to say that a life without risk is a life half-lived. We're only here for a short time. Might as well make it count. Jiwon wrote notes on her data pad. This was a pattern she was seeing. Humans understood risk, but they valued other things more. Purpose, meaning, contribution. It was so strange. Later that day, she visited the reactor room with Minho. She wore a full protective suit, double-layered. Minho wore a standard work suit. Nothing special. The reactor hummed with barely contained power. Minho walked around it like it was a pet, patting the panels and checking readings. She's running a bit hot today, he said affectionately. Probably needs a coolant adjustment. Should we leave? Jiwon asked, her voice tight inside her helmet. Nah, it's fine. Just needs a quick fix. Minho opened a panel and reached inside with his bare hands. Jiwon wanted to run. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to get away from this dangerous place, but she forced herself to stay and watch. This was her job. She needed to understand. Minho worked for 20 minutes, his hands moving confidently among the glowing components. He hummed a tune while he worked, actually hummed like he was doing something pleasant. Then something went wrong. A pipe burst. Steam shot out, scalding hot. Minho jerked his hand back with a yell. The reactor's alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed everywhere. Emergency shutdown, Minho shouted into his communicator. He grabbed a tool and reached back into the reactor, even though his hand was burned. Stop, Jiwon cried. You're hurt. We need to evacuate. Can't evacuate, Minho grunted, working frantically. If this reactor goes critical, it'll take half the colony with it. Just need to... There! He pulled a lever. The alarm stopped. The humming changed pitch, lowering. The danger passed. Minho slumped against the reactor, breathing hard. His hand was badly burned, blistering already, but he was smiling. That was close, he said, laughing. Actually, laughing, Jiwon called for medical help. As they waited, she stared at Minho. You could have died, but I didn't. Minho looked at his burned hand without much concern, and neither did anyone else. That's a good day in my book. You're insane, Jiwon whispered. Maybe. Minho's smile faded a bit. Or maybe we just value different things. You see risk, I see responsibility. You see danger, I see a job that needs doing. The medical team arrived and took Minho away. Jiwon stood alone in the reactor room, her mind spinning. What kind of species willingly risked death for their job? What kind of evolution created people who laughed at danger? The next day, Jiwon interviewed a young human child named Taeyong. He was 7 years old, with bright eyes and endless energy. The interview was optional, just to get a child's perspective on their culture. What do you want to be when you grow up? Jiwon asked. An explorer, Taeyong said immediately. I want to see new worlds and find new things. Isn't that dangerous? Taeyong thought about this seriously. Yeah, probably, but it would be amazing. Can you imagine being the first person to see a new planet or finding aliens we've never met? Don't you worry about the risks? About getting hurt or lost? Sure, but that's part of the adventure. Taeyong pulled out a datapad and showed her pictures. See, I've been studying about Earth explorers from old times. They crossed oceans in tiny boats. They climbed huge mountains. They went to places where no one had ever been. And yeah, some of them died, but they found incredible things. Jiwan looked at the pictures. Human history was full of these explorers. People who walked into the unknown, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. "Do your parents worry about you wanting to explore?" she asked. "Mom worries a lot," Taeyong admitted. "But Dad says that worry is love. And love means letting people chase their dreams." That evening, Jiwon met with Nari in the ship's observation room. Her fellow scientist looked tired. "I've been reviewing human history," Nari said, pulling up displays. "Jiwon, their history is terrifying. Wars, plagues, natural disasters, near extinctions. They've faced everything. And survived," Jiwon added. "Yes, but look how." Nari expanded the displays. "Every time something terrible happens, they rebuild. They lose millions of people and they keep going. They face impossible odds and they try anyway. It's like they don't understand that some things can't be fixed." Jiwon studied the data. The human homeworld, Earth, had been through ice ages, asteroid impacts, disease outbreaks that killed huge portions of the population. And every single time, humanity survived and came back stronger. "Maybe they do understand," Jiwon said slowly. "Maybe they just refuse to accept it." "That's not logical." "No, it's not." Jiwon thought about Minho's burned hand, about Taeyong's dreams, about Doyun's smile during the crisis. But it might be something else, something we don't have words for. Over the next few days, Jiwon observed more humans. She watched construction workers building new domes without safety lines. She saw scientists working with dangerous chemicals. She observed pilots flying through asteroid fields for practice. Every single human understood the risks. When she asked them, they could list all the things that might go wrong. They weren't stupid or ignorant. They knew exactly how dangerous their actions were. They just did them anyway. On the 7th day, Jiwon presented her preliminary findings to Captain Hyejin. "They're either the bravest species I've ever encountered," Jiwon said, "or the most broken. I can't tell which." "What do you recommend?" Hyejin asked. Jiwon hesitated. The coalition valued safety and caution. They avoided risks and planned carefully. Humans were the opposite of everything the coalition stood for. "I need more time," she finally said. "I need to understand what drives them, because right now I can see what they do, but I don't understand why." Hyejin nodded. "Then continue your work. But Jiwon, be careful. If this species is unstable, if their risk-taking is a sign of some psychological problem, we need to know. The coalition can't accept a species that might endanger others." Jiwon returned to the colony the next day. She found Do-yoon in his office, working on reports. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. "Of course." Do-yoon gestured to a chair. "Why aren't you afraid?" The question came out more bluntly than she intended. "I've watched your people for a week. You take risks that would paralyze any coalition species. You face dangers that should terrify you. So why aren't you afraid?" Do-yoon looked at her for a long moment. His expression was thoughtful, not defensive. "Who says we're not afraid?" he asked quietly. Before Jiwon could respond, before she could process that answer, the colony's alarms began to scream. The alarm was different from the solar flare warning. This one was deeper, more urgent. It made Jiwon's bones vibrate with its intensity. Do-yoon was already moving, running to the operations center. Jiwon followed, her heart pounding. The center was chaos, but organized chaos. Humans moved quickly to their stations, their faces serious. "Report!" Do-yoon shouted. "Asteroid field, sir!" Yoonji called from her station. Her fingers flew over the controls, pulling up data on the main screen. "Big one. It wasn't there an hour ago. Must have been hidden behind the moon's shadow. Ji-won stared at the screen. Hundreds of asteroids, some as large as buildings, were heading straight for the colony. She felt her blood turn cold. This was extinction-level danger. Time to impact? Doyun's voice was steady, but Ji-won could hear the tension underneath. 2 hours and 17 minutes, another operator responded. Evacuation protocols, someone suggested. Not enough time, Doyun said, shaking his head. We have 12,000 people here. It would take 4 hours minimum to evacuate everyone to orbit. Ji-won activated her communicator. Captain Hyejin, we have an emergency. The captain's face appeared on her wrist device. We see it, Ji-won. We're moving to safe distance now. What about the colony? They cannot evacuate in time. It's a tragedy. But there's nothing we can do. Hyejin's face showed sadness, but acceptance. This was the kind of disaster that fear was meant to prevent. You chose safe locations. You had escape plans. The coalition would never have built a colony without enough evacuation time, but humans had. Ji-won, return to the ship immediately, Hyejin ordered. Ji-won looked at Doyun. He was studying the screen, his jaw tight. Around him, his people waited for orders. No one was crying. No one was panicking. They were just waiting to see what they could do. No, Ji-won said quietly. What? Hyejin's voice rose. I'm staying. To observe. To understand, she didn't add. Hyejin looked like she wanted to argue, but she just nodded. May your death teach us about your courage, xenologist. The screen went dark. Ji-won turned to Doyun. What will you do? We fight. Doyun's voice was firm. He turned to his people. All right, people. We've got 2 hours to save our home. Sang-woo, how many fighters can we get in the air? A man with a scarred face and pilot's jacket stepped forward. 48 operational, maybe 50 if we rush the repairs on Delta Squadron. Get them all up. Load every ship with missiles and mining charges. Doyun pulled up a tactical display. We can't stop all the asteroids, but we can break them into smaller pieces. Small enough for the shields to handle. That's suicide, someone whispered. That's Tuesday, Sang-woo replied with a grim smile. Come on, people. My kid's birthday is next week. I'm not missing that party. The room erupted with activity. Ji-won watched in amazement as the humans transformed fear into action. They were scared. She could see it in their faces, in their quick movements, in their tight voices. But they didn't freeze. They didn't accept death. They were going to fight a field of asteroids with small ships and weapons meant for mining. You should go to a shelter, Doyun told Ji-won. The operations center might not survive if we fail. I'm staying, Ji-won repeated. I need to see this. Doyun studied her face, then nodded. Your choice. On the screens, Ji-won watched the fighters launch. 50 small ships rising up to meet hundreds of asteroids. The math was impossible. They couldn't win. But they were trying anyway. Sang-woo's voice came through the speakers. Delta leader to all fighters. Remember your training. Target the big ones first. Break them into manageable pieces. Watch each other's backs. And if anyone dies, I'm going to be really annoyed, so don't. Nervous laughter rippled through the communications channel. They were joking. Facing death, and they were joking. Why do they laugh? Ji-won asked Doyun. Because if we don't laugh, we'll cry, Doyun said simply. And crying doesn't blow up asteroids. The battle began. The fighters scattered into formation, each one targeting the largest asteroids. Missiles launched, tiny sparks against the massive rocks. Mining charges detonated, designed to split ore, now used to fragment death itself. The first asteroids broke apart. Cheers erupted in the operations center, but there were so many more coming. Delta 3 is hit, someone shouted. Ji-won saw a fighter spiral out of control, its wings sheared off by debris. The pilot, a woman named Ji-hye, tried to regain control. "Jihye, eject!" Sangwoo ordered. "Negative, Delta Leader. I've got one more missile. I'm not wasting it." Jihye aimed her damaged fighter at a massive asteroid. "For New Haven!" The fighter impacted the asteroid just as the missile fired. The explosion was tremendous. The asteroid shattered into hundreds of smaller pieces. Jihye was gone. The operations center went silent. Jiwon felt tears on her face, though she didn't remember starting to cry. This was horror. This was watching someone choose to die. But Do-yoon's voice cut through the silence. "That bought us 10 more minutes. Jihye gave us time. Don't waste it. Keep fighting." And they did. They kept fighting. Jiwon watched as human after human made impossible choices. A pilot named Minseo sacrificed his fighter to save 2 others. An engineer named Jun manually fired the colony's mining lasers, even though the radiation would kill him within days. A young woman named Suji, barely 20, held formation even when her shields failed. They were terrified. Jiwon could hear it in their voices, see it in the shaking of their hands on the controls. But they kept fighting. "Why?" Jiwon whispered, though she didn't expect an answer. But Do-yoon heard her. He turned from the screens, and his face was wet with tears. "Because we're afraid, Jiwon. We're so afraid. But we learned a long time ago that fear is just a feeling. It's not a command. It's information. It tells us about danger, but it doesn't tell us what to do about it." "But they're dying," Jiwon gestured at the screen where another fighter exploded. "Yes," Do-yoon's voice broke. "They are, and every single one of them is terrified. But they're here anyway, because that's what courage is, not the absence of fear, acting despite it." Jiwon finally understood. The coalition species had learned to listen to fear, to obey it, to let it guide them to safety. They had survived by avoiding danger. But humans had survived by facing it, by feeling the fear and doing what needed to be done anyway. "We're not going to make it," Yoonji said quietly. "There are too many." Do-yoon looked at the screens. 30 fighters left. Hundreds of asteroids remaining. 45 minutes until impact. "Then we hurt them as much as we can," he said. "If we're going to die, we die fighting." Sangwoo's voice came through again. "Delta Leader to all ships, it's been an honor. Let's make this count." Jiwon made a decision. She activated her communicator. "Captain Hyejin." The captain appeared, her face grim. "Jiwon, you should make peace. Your death comes soon. No, you need to help them. The Eternal Harmony has weapons. You have shields strong enough to handle the debris. You can—" "We cannot," Hyejin interrupted. "Coalition protocol forbids interfering in natural disasters. It is not our place to—" "Protocol?" Jiwon felt anger rise in her chest, hot and sharp. 12,000 people are about to die, and you're worried about protocol? "We cannot risk our ship for non-coalition species. The rules are clear." Jiwon looked at Do-yoon. He wasn't listening to her conversation. He was focused on his people, on coordinating the defense, on fighting until the very end. She thought about Minho's burned hand, about Taeyong's dreams, about Jihye's final words, about 50 humans flying toward certain death because their home needed defending. "Captain," Jiwon said, her voice cold and clear, "I am invoking Article 17 of the Xenologist Charter. As the ranking coalition officer on site, I am declaring this a sapient species preservation emergency. You will bring the Eternal Harmony into weapons range. You will engage the asteroid field. That is an order." Hyejin's face went pale. "You're ending your career." "I know." Jiwon looked at the humans fighting and dying on the screens. "But I finally understand what courage means. And I won't let protocol make me a coward." The silence stretched between them. Then Hyejin spoke, her voice rough. "May we all forgive ourselves for what we do next. Eternal Harmony. To all crew. Battle stations. We're going in." The Eternal Harmony appeared on the screens like a silver moon, moving into position above the colony. It was 3 times larger than any human ship, built for exploration and diplomacy, not war. But it had weapons. Every coalition ship did, for defense. Today, defense meant offense. "Coalition vessel incoming!" one of the human operators shouted. Doyun's head snapped up. He saw the ship on the screen, saw its weapons powering up. For a moment, hope flickered across his face, quickly replaced by confusion. "Why would they?" "Because someone taught me about courage," Jiwan said quietly. The Eternal Harmony's weapons were designed to destroy dangerous debris and defend against pirates. They fired in precise, controlled bursts. Each shot was calculated to break asteroids into the smallest possible fragments. In the operations center, everyone watched as the massive ship opened fire. Blue energy beams cut through space, intersecting with the asteroid field. Rocks that would have destroyed the colony shattered into dust. "Hot damn!" Sangwoo's voice crackled through the speakers. "Did we just get backup?" "Affirmative, Delta Leader," Doyen responded, his voice thick with emotion. "Coalition forces are engaging. Well, it's about time someone else joined this party. All fighters, focus on the mid-sized targets. Let the big ship handle the monsters." The battle changed. With the Eternal Harmony's support, the human fighters could focus on the smaller asteroids. They worked together, human and alien, in a deadly dance through space, but it still wasn't enough. "Shield status," Hyejin's voice came through on Jiwan's communicator. "Coalition vessel shields at 60%, Nari responded. "Debris impacts are heavy." Jiwan watched the readings. The Eternal Harmony was taking damage, using its shields to protect both itself and the colony below. Every asteroid that hit the shield was one that wouldn't hit New Haven, but shields could fail. "Captain, you need to pull back," Jiwan said. "You're taking too much damage." "We're committed now," Hyejin replied. "If we retreat, the colony dies. If we stay, we might die, but might is better than certain." Jiwan realized something then. Hyejin was afraid. She could hear it in her captain's voice. The coalition ship's crew was terrified. This went against every instinct they had, every rule they'd learned, but they were doing it anyway. Courage wasn't only human, it was a choice, and the Valtherians were choosing it too. "Delta 5 is down," the call came through the fighter's channel. "Repeat, Delta 5 is..." Static. Another pilot gone. Jiwan kept count in her head. They'd lost 18 fighters now, 18 humans who had flown out to defend their home and never came back. Each one had been afraid. Each one had gone anyway. On another screen, she saw young Valtherian officers working frantically at their stations aboard the Eternal Harmony. A junior officer named June, no older than Taeyong, was coordinating the targeting systems. His hands shook, but his aim was perfect. "June's doing well," Nari's voice said through Jiwan's communicator. "He volunteered to take over when our weapons officer froze, said he wanted to help." The humans were teaching by example. Even in battle, even facing death, they were showing the coalition species what acting despite fear looked like. "Critical asteroid incoming," Yunji shouted. "It's too big. Neither the fighters nor the Harmony can stop it in time." Jiwan saw it on the screen. A massive rock, larger than any they'd faced. It would hit the colony's main dome. Even if they broke it apart, the debris would be catastrophic. "Sangwoo to all fighters. I'm going in." "Negative, Delta Leader." Doyen's voice was sharp. "That's a suicide run." "I know." Sangwoo's voice was calm, almost peaceful. "But someone has to do it. And I'm the best pilot we have. I've got the best chance of placing the charges right." "Sangwoo, please." A woman's voice came through, broken with tears. "Please don't come home." "Hey, Minji," Sangwoo said gently. "Tell our boy I love him. Tell him his dad did something that mattered." "Sangwoo." "Delta Leader engaging target. It's been an honor, everyone." Ji-won watched as the single fighter flew toward the massive asteroid. Sang-woo dodged smaller debris, his piloting skills incredible. He got close, closer than should be possible, and released every weapon he had, mining charges, missiles, even his fighter's reactor set to overload. "For New Haven," Sang-woo whispered. The explosion lit up the screens. The massive asteroid shattered into thousands of pieces. The colony's shields could handle thousands. They couldn't have handled one. The operations center was silent except for quiet crying. Do-yoon's face was stone, but tears ran down his cheeks. Yoonji buried her face in her hands. Others embraced, holding each other as they grieved, but they kept working, because the battle wasn't over yet. "Sang-woo bought us time," Do-yoon said, his voice rough. "Remaining fighters continue engagement. We're not done yet." "Sir, we've lost over 60% of our forces," someone protested. "And we're still here." Do-yoon looked around the room. "Every person who died today made a choice. They chose to fight. They chose to protect us. We honor them by finishing what they started." The battle raged on. Minutes felt like hours. The eternal harmonies. Shields dropped to 40%, then 30%. Human fighters fell one by one, but the asteroid field was thinning. "5 minutes to impact," Yoonji called out. "Remaining asteroids, calculating. Colony shields can handle them if we break up 3 more large ones." "3?" Do-yoon looked at the screens. Only 7 fighters remained. "Can we do it?" "We have to," a pilot responded. "Delta 3 engaging target Alpha. Delta 6 on target Beta. Delta 9 taking Gamma." Ji-won watched as the 3 fighters moved into position. Their weapons were nearly depleted. Their shields were failing, but they flew true. 3 more explosions. 3 more asteroids shattered. But one fighter didn't pull away in time. Delta 3 was caught in the blast. 6 fighters remaining," Yoonji said quietly, "but we did it. The rest are small enough for shields." The remaining asteroids hit the colony's shields in a spectacular light show. Each impact sent ripples of blue energy across the dome, but it held. The colony was safe. In the operations center, no one cheered. They'd won, but the cost was too high. 28 pilots had left. 6 returned. Ji-won looked at Do-yoon. The human administrator was holding himself together, but barely. His people needed him to be strong. So he was. But the price of that strength showed on his face. "Captain Hyejin," Ji-won said into her communicator. "Status?" "Shield failure in approximately 10 minutes, Hyejin responded. Her voice was exhausted. "But we survived. The colony survived." "Thank you, Captain. Don't thank me yet. The Council will have words about this. Many words." Ji-won knew what that meant. She'd violated protocol. She'd risked a coalition ship and crew for non-members. There would be consequences. But looking at the human colony still shining below, still intact, still full of life, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Do-yoon turned to her. "Your people helped us. You didn't have to, but you did." "You were right," Ji-won said. "About fear, about courage. I watched your people fly toward death because their home needed defending. I watched them choose to act despite their terror. And I realized something." "What's that?" "The coalition has spent thousands of years learning to avoid risk. We choose safe paths. We plan for every contingency. We let fear guide us." Ji-won looked at the screens showing the debris field, the ruined fighters, the exhausted survivors. "And we're still alive. We're safe. But we've forgotten how to be brave." Do-yoon shook his head slowly. "Bravery isn't forgetting fear. It's remembering fear and doing what needs to be done anyway. Your captain remembered that today. She was afraid, but she came anyway. Because she learned from you." "No." Do-yoon smiled sadly. "Because courage was always in her, in all your people. You just needed a reason to find it." Yoonji looked up from her station. "Sir, the rescue teams are bringing in the survivors. Medical bay is ready." "Good." Doyun took a deep breath. "And prepare for memorial services. We have people to honor." As the operations center slowly returned to normal functions, Ji-won stood by the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere up there, the Eternal Harmony was limping back to orbit, damaged but intact. Coalition crew members who had faced their fears today would carry that experience forever. And down here, in a human colony that should have died but didn't, people were beginning to grieve their losses and celebrate their survival. Ji-won finally understood what made humans special. It wasn't that they didn't feel fear. They felt it just as deeply as any species. Maybe more so. But they'd learned something the Coalition had forgotten. That fear was a teacher, not a master. That courage wasn't fearlessness. That sometimes the only way to survive was to risk everything. She pulled up her datapad and began her report to the council. It would be the most important assessment of her career, and quite possibly her last. The memorial service was held 3 days later. Ji-won attended, standing at the back of the crowd. 22 humans had died in the battle, and the entire colony came to honor them. There were no bodies. The pilots had been vaporized in space, their remains scattered among the asteroid dust. But the humans had built markers anyway, each one bearing a name and a picture. Ji-won recognized some of the faces. Sang-woo, who had sacrificed himself for the final killing blow. Ji, who had used her last missile. Minseo, Suji, and others whose names she'd heard over the communications during the battle. Doyun stood at the front, speaking about each person. He told stories that made people laugh and cry. He talked about Sang-woo's terrible jokes and his love for his son. About Ji-hee's dream of becoming a teacher. About the young pilot who had wanted to see Earth someday. "They were afraid," Doyun said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. Every single one of them knew the risks. They knew they might not come home, but they went anyway because that's what we do. We feel fear and we act. We face the impossible and we try. That's what makes us human. After the service, Ji-won found herself walking with a human doctor named Minji. She was Sang-woo's widow, her eyes red from crying but her back straight. "I'm sorry for your loss," Ji-won said quietly. "Thank you." Minji smiled sadly. He died doing what he loved, protecting people, being a hero. "I'm angry that he's gone, but I'm proud of what he did." "How do you live with that? The fear that the people you love might not come home?" Minji stopped walking and looked at Ji-won. "The same way we live with everything else. We acknowledge the fear, and we choose love anyway. Yes, I might lose people. Yes, it hurts. But the alternative is never loving anyone, never taking risks, never really living. And that's worse than any pain." In the medical center, Minji showed Ji-won the wounded. June, the engineer who had manually fired the mining lasers, was dying from radiation poisoning, but he smiled when Minji checked on him. "Did we win?" he asked. "We won," Minji confirmed. "Good. Worth it then." June closed his eyes, peaceful. Ji-won also saw Valtharian crew members being treated. They had taken minor injuries during the battle when systems had exploded or panels had fallen. Young June from the Eternal Harmony, the officer who had volunteered to run the weapons, was being treated for a broken arm. "How are you feeling?" Ji-won asked him. "Scared," June admitted, "but also proud. I did something that mattered. I was terrified every second, but I helped save people. That feels good." Ji-won smiled. "Yes, it does." That evening, a message came from the Coalition High Council. Ji-won was summoned to a formal hearing. Captain Hyejin received the same summons. They would answer for their violation of protocol. The hearing was conducted by hologram, with Ji-won and Hyejin standing in the Eternal Harmony's conference room, while council members appeared around them in shimmering light. Elder Suho, an ancient Valtharian with silver scales and wise eyes, spoke first. Xenologist Jiwan, Captain Hyejin, you are accused of violating Coalition protocol by risking a Coalition vessel and crew for non-member species. How do you respond? Guilty, Jiwan said simply. I gave the order. The responsibility is mine. I executed the order willingly, Hyejin added. The responsibility is also mine. Suho's expression didn't change. You risked 47 lives. The Eternal Harmony sustained significant damage. You broke protocols that have kept our coalition safe for millennia. What do you have to say? Jiwan took a deep breath. I say that our protocols are incomplete. We have learned to survive through caution, through avoiding risk. And that has worked. We are alive, we are safe, but we have also become paralyzed. We watch people die rather than risk helping them. We let fear control us instead of inform us. Fear keeps us alive, another council member interjected. Fear gives us information, Jiwan corrected. It warns us of danger. But humans have taught me that fear is not a command. It's a tool. We can feel afraid and still choose to act. The humans are reckless, Suho said. No, they're brave. Jiwan pulled up her report, projecting it for all to see. I spent weeks studying them. They feel fear just like us. Their hearts race, their hands shake, they want to run. But they've learned something we've forgotten. That courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. She showed images from the battle. Human pilots flying toward asteroids, Sangwoo's final run. The Eternal Harmony moving into danger. Every human who died in that battle was terrified, Jiwan continued. But they fought anyway, not because they were broken or suicidal, because they valued something more than their own safety. They valued their home, their people, their purpose. And you think we should value these things too? Suho asked. I think we already do. We just don't act on it. Jiwan looked at each council member. When was the last time any coalition species did something truly brave? When did we last risk something important for something we believed in? Silence filled the room. The council members looked at each other, uncomfortable with the question. Hyejin spoke up. I have been a captain for 30 years. I have followed every protocol, avoided every unnecessary risk. I have kept my crew safe, but I have never felt as alive as I did during that battle. My crew will tell you the same. We were terrified, but we were also proud. We saved 12,000 lives. That means something. It means you got lucky, a council member said. You could have died. Yes, Hyejin agreed. We could have, but we didn't. And even if we had, we would have died doing something meaningful. There are worse deaths. Suho was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Your assessment of humanity, Xenologist Jiwan. Do you recommend them for coalition membership? This was the real question. Everything led to this moment. Jiwan thought about Minho's burned hand, about Taeyong's dreams, about Sangwoo's sacrifice, about Doyun's tears, about Minji's choice to love despite the risk of loss. Yes, she said firmly, I recommend them for membership, not despite their courage, but because of it. The coalition has grown stagnant. We play it safe, we avoid risks, and we're dying slowly because of it. Our birth rates are declining, our exploration has stopped. We exist, but we don't really live. She gestured to the images of the battle. Humans live. They feel fear and act anyway. They risk everything for what they believe in. They teach by example. My own captain learned courage from them. Young officers aboard the Harmony volunteered for dangerous tasks they would never have attempted before. Humans don't just survive, they inspire. They also die at alarming rates, Suho pointed out. Yes, but they live at alarming rates too. Jiwan smiled, and I think we could learn from that. The council deliberated for hours. Jiwan and Hyejin waited, uncertain of their fate. Finally, Suho returned. The council has reached a decision. Captain Hyejin, you are found guilty of protocol violation. You will be suspended from command for 1 year. Hyejin nodded, accepting the sentence. However, you will spend that year as an instructor, teaching coalition officers about crisis decision-making and acting under pressure. Hyejin's eyes widened. Teaching? Your crew spoke highly of your leadership during the battle. We need more captains who can make difficult choices. Suho turned to Jiwon. Xenologist Jiwon, you are found guilty of protocol violation. Your xenologist credentials are suspended. Jiwon's heart sank. Her career was over. However, Suho continued, you are appointed as permanent liaison to humanity. Your new title is Ambassador of Courage. Your job will be to facilitate human integration into the coalition and to teach coalition species about bravery. Jiwon couldn't speak. She'd expected punishment, not promotion. As for humanity, Suho said, the council has voted. By a narrow margin, humans are accepted into the Galactic Coalition on a trial basis. They will have full membership rights, but they will also have a responsibility. They must teach. Teach what? Jiwon asked. Courage. How to feel fear and act anyway. How to risk for what matters. How to live, not just survive. Suho smiled, the first real smile Jiwon had ever seen from him. We are an old coalition. Perhaps we need some young blood, some human bravery, some... He paused, searching for the word. Some hope. The hologram faded, leaving Jiwon and Hyejin alone. We did it, Hyejin whispered. We actually did it. Jiwon felt tears on her face. They're going to change everything. Yes, I think they will. Jiwon returned to the colony to give Doyun the news. She found him at Sangwoo's memorial marker, placing fresh flowers. The council accepted humanity, she said. Doyun turned, surprise on his face. Really? Even after we nearly destroyed ourselves fighting asteroids? Because you fought asteroids. Because you showed us what courage looks like. Jiwon sat down next to him. I have a question for you. The one I asked before the battle, but we got interrupted. Why aren't we afraid? Doyun smiled. You know the answer now. You are afraid, but you act anyway. Exactly. Doyun looked at the memorial markers. Every person here was terrified. Sangwoo was shaking when he flew his last mission, but he did it because it needed doing. That's what makes us human. We feel everything, fear, pain, loss, and we keep going. The council wants humans to teach coalition species about courage. We're not teachers, Doyun protested. You already are. You taught me. You taught my captain. You taught young officers who volunteered for tasks they never would have attempted before. Jiwon stood up. You teach by example, by living despite fear, by choosing hope over safety. Doyun was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, Are you afraid of what comes next? Humanity, joining the coalition, changing everything? Jiwon thought about it honestly. Yes, I'm terrified. Your species is going to shake up everything we know. You're going to challenge our comfortable safety. You're going to push us to take risks we've avoided for thousands of years. And I can't wait. Jiwon smiled. You taught me that fear is just information. It tells me this is important, that change is coming, that nothing will be the same. But it doesn't tell me to run. It tells me to pay attention, to be ready, to act. Now you're thinking like a human. Doyun laughed. Welcome to the club. It's terrifying. But worth it. But worth it, he agreed. As the sun set over New Haven Colony, Jiwon looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, coalition species were learning about humanity. They would be afraid of change, afraid of risk, afraid of these strange new members who laughed in the face of danger. But fear was just information. And if a cautious Valtharian xenologist could learn to act despite it, perhaps there was hope for the whole galaxy. After all, courage wasn't something you were born with. It was something you chose every single day. The humans had been choosing it for their entire history. Now it was time for the rest of the galaxy to learn how. Doyen stood up, ready to head home. Want to know a secret? Always. I'm scared of tomorrow, of joining the coalition, of teaching other species, of all the responsibility that comes with it. Jiwon smiled. But that's never stopped you before. No, Doyen agreed, smiling back. It never has.